I'm Deacon Grote. I'm a lifelong Catholic, and I'm the author of Where Have All the Fathers Gone? Daily Thoughts for Dads, Dads to Be and Papas. And if guys can get those three roles correct, they're going to find out that their lives can be much simpler, and the love that they'll have will be everlasting.
Grote Baker was a fairly large operation here in the city, and there used to be a supermarket chain called Biggs. And Biggs had a relationship with a school in Over the Rhine. And they asked if they could bring a group of kids out for a tour of our bakery. And I said, sure, we'll let them come on out. So my thought was I would teach the kids proportions of. So I started to talk by saying, when Dad goes to the store for Mom, and she might ask him to pick up a pound of butter, this is what it looks like. And before I could get those words out of my mouth, one of the teachers is just shaking his head at me. And I got kind of uncomfortable, but I kept going. I said, if Grandma might bring over, or Grandpa brings over a 5-pound sack of sugar, and this is the 100 pounds we use, and teacher's still going like this. And I said, Dad might pick up a dozen eggs on the way home. This is a dozen eggs, and here's the 30, and the teacher's still going like this. And now I'm getting really uncomfortable. I can't understand what's going on. And so we let the kids decorate cakes. So they did that. They had icing all over themselves. But as soon as I got them situated with the icing and the cakes, I walked up to that teacher. I said, why were you shaking your head? He said, 50% of these kids don't have a father in their lives. I've been loved all my life. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I just didn't understand.
The saddest statistic I've ever heard is that it's easier for a child to reconcile with the death of his father than it is to reconcile with the fact that there's a man alive who wants nothing to do with him. I read that about 15 years ago, and I probably think about it once a day at least. To me, it's very scary because there's more and more kids like that out there, and we need to help those kids out. We need to help the fathers out to make them help them understand what it's like to be a dad and the rewards that go along with that.
I'm going to share one story with you tonight. I mentioned the bakery earlier. I had two boys, and when they got to be 10 years old, one thing they wanted to do was to ride in the bakery truck. You had to be 10 years old to be able to do that. And so one morning I got my son, we went out to the bakery, got in the truck, and my son, and my wife here can testify to this, he was quirky, but he would come up with the goofiest things at times. And in all seriousness, and he was kind of a quiet kid, but he's sitting next to me and he looks at me, he says, Dad, when's your forehead gonna stop growing? I let him out of the truck. But those are the things that you remember, okay? That same child a few years ago said to me, Dad, you never missed one game that I played? He said, maybe one. Now he played football, basketball, and baseball all through grade school. He played football, basketball, and ran track in high school. And he remembered that I'd been at every game. I didn't remember that, but he did. So when you have children of your own, and you think you might want to go do something else, and they've got a game, or they've got a practice you got to run them to, or they've got dance recital, think about going, because they're going to remember you were there, even though you may forget that you did. God has chosen us, you and me, to be alive at this time. How will we either ignore the evidence in front of us or decide enough is enough and fight for basic human dignity and foster love between you, your spouse, and your family?
I'm being called. The Lord is telling me I've got a message. The things that He's given me, the gifts in my life, the love that I've shared. I've always been loved, and I want one young man to be able to say, hey, my dad came back and I found out what love was. There are too many guys out there who are neglecting their children and neglecting the love that they can have in their lives. And then once they find that love, they find out what a gift it is, and then they'll share it with others as well.
What a different place our world would be if we could start making a dent in the number of kids without a father in their lives. Won't you join me?
One of the things I'll talk about is how fulfilling your life can be if you do two simple things. One is tell your wife you love her today, and the other is to tell your children you love them today. You get those two things right, and you'll have a very fulfilling life.